morning.
Good morning.
Good to see everybody this morning. We are going to be finishing up chapter 24 this morning. We get into chapter 25 of Matthew. We got down to verse 45 in Matthew 24. And of course that chapter was talking about two things, the second coming of Christ, and then also talking about the destruction of Jerusalem. So as we finish up here, he's going to be talking about this second coming and really giving a warning at the last part of this chapter, and then he's going to go into some other teaching. So 45 says, "Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his master made ruler over his household to give him food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his master, when he comes, will find so doing. But surely I say to you that he will make him ruler over all his goods. But if the evil servant says in his heart, my master is delaying his coming, and begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day that he is not looking for him, and at an hour that he is not aware of, and will cut him in two, and appoint him to his portion with the hypocrites, where there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So this is a warning against letting your guard down, knowing there's going to be this second coming of Christ. And he's talked about that in some detail previously in the chapter, but he compares it here to that faithful servant that, when his master's gone, he continues to work. He continues to do the things that his master would have him to do. And so when the master comes back, he's going to be rewarded greatly for doing that while the master was away. But then he gives the other scenario where here's this other servant that the master has delayed him coming back, and he takes advantage of that. And like it says here, starts beating the other servants, starts running around with drunkards. In other words, doing things he knows his master shouldn't do. And he says when the master comes, he's going to come at a time that he's not looking for him, and he's going to be punished for that. And so the warning there for them and for us is Jesus has told us he's coming again, right? We know that. Do we know when? And this is what all those teachings leading up to this were about. We don't know when he's coming back. He didn't even know. Only God knows when that time is going to be. So the warning here is don't, just because there's a delay in Jesus coming, don't let your guard down. Don't take advantage of the fact that he hadn't come back and do things you ought not be doing, but be preparing for when he does come back again. Nobody does. So you think about this warning. Is it easy to let your guard down when things are delayed, or when you? It is, isn't it? If it's when you're young and your parents are away from home, and you think you know about when they're coming back, but you don't know when. What do you do? Do you do what you're supposed to do, or do you take advantage of that time and do things you shouldn't do? You party, yeah. We party. My grandmother bought a ball for Christmas one year. She had it hid behind the TV. Every time she would leave the house, my Uncle Dennis and I would get the ball out and play with it and put it back. But we were shocked on Christmas when she brought that ball out for Christmas. But we never got caught. And this is what people think. You think, well, once you get away with it for a period of time, what do you start doing? You think, oh, well, I'm getting away with it. But he's saying, don't let your guard down. Don't think just because Jesus hasn't come back that it could be at any moment. So don't think that you're going to have time to prepare, you're going to have time to get ready. It's not the way it's going to be. And he's already said it's going to be sudden. It's going to be in a twinkling of an eye. It's going to be that time when you're not expecting. So prepare yourself for it, and don't let yourself be caught off guard when this time comes. But I'm afraid there's a lot of people that are going to be that way. There's going to be a lot that, because you remember when Peter was writing in his writing in 1st, 2nd Peter, that one of the times they asked the servants of Christ, they said, well, he said he's coming back. Why hadn't he come back yet? why is the delay happening? And remember, this is in the early church. And that's when he said, you know, with God, 1,000 years is just one day, and 1 day is 1,000. In other words, does time mean anything to God? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean a thing. And it also adds there that he is long-suffering, not willing that any should perish, but all should what? Come to repentance. You ever ask yourself in your mind, why in the world is Christ not coming back? Why hasn't he already come back? You look around the world today, the evil, the things that are going on, you think of why delay? But it could be that God has given people a chance to make that turn. He didn't want anybody to perish. But there will come a time when it's going to get to the point he will be returning again. So be ready for it. So any comments on that last part, that warning that he's given us about being prepared? I think it's going to be, you know, when you think of all the signs and all the things we talked about, it's going to be, I can't imagine what that's going to be that day, but those of us who are aware and we are prepared, it'll be a joyous day, but for others it's going to be a shock. You know, maybe they heard about it, whoops, they didn't get prepared. It's going to be too late. So we get in then to chapter 25, and this is what I always have to remind myself that, you know, man broke down these things in chapters. This was not written in chapters. When man translated the original text, he put it in chapters to make it easier to study and read. But so this teaching that Christ does now this is continuous teaching. He's talked about the second coming. So these parables that he's going to give in this next chapter, chapter 25, we're going to deal with really being prepared and what's going to happen and that kind of thing, and what we should do to be prepared when Jesus comes again. So the first one is going to be the parable of the 10 virgins. So let's read 1 through 13, and then we'll talk about this parable. He says, "Then the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. But while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, Behold, the bridegroom is coming, go out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose, trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, No, lest there should not be enough for us and you. Go rather to those who sell and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding, and the door was shut. Afterward the other virgins came and also saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Surely I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour which the Son of Man is coming." So, we studied just a while back another instance where Jesus used this wedding feast to teach a lesson, and he's using this again. So, in their weddings back then, we'll go over that again, the two young people, they made a contract with each other. And they were basically locked into that contract, what we would call an engagement period. For them, they were locked into each other during this contract period, and that could go on for about a year. And a year later, the groom went to the bride's house, and the bride was presented to him. And then they went, after that, at nighttime, they proceeded to the groom's house, where there was a banquet held for them. This might be what we might call, the party after the wedding or whatever, the reception. And so, but there would be this parade of people that would come by, and these 10 virgins would be those who would be standing by the way with the lamps lit for the groom when they would come by, and then they would follow the groom into the house for the banquet. So here he says, here are these, they're waiting for this, this procession to take place, this parade to go by. They didn't know when it was going to happen. It wasn't like it was like, okay, it's going to happen at, 10 o'clock. But it was delayed, so even to the point that they slumbered and slept. Now, I think he's using that as an example of those who waiting for Christ's second coming. What would it mean to slumber and sleep, waiting for that coming? Not being prepared. It's like, well, I'm just going to kind of sit here and not do anything, right? I'm not going to prepare myself. So these lamps that they had, if you go back and read a little bit of the history of the lamp. So this lamp, I would almost, the way it was described is almost like, those Aladdin lamps that they show you. It has a spout that comes out the side, and the wick actually comes out the spout of that lamp. And so the oil is in the lamp. So when they came, it says the foolish ones came just with the oil that was in the lamp. Well, it didn't hold much oil. And I don't know, any of y'all still have the old kerosene lamps, that you raise the wick and lower the wick and all that kind of thing. So it's kind of like that, except they had to actually insert the wicks to do a lot of things there. So while they slumbered and slept, the wise had extra oil because they knew that it wouldn't last long, not knowing how long is this going to take, right? But the foolish ones didn't. So all of a sudden they're asleep, and all of a sudden there's this cry. Here he comes. Here comes the bridegroom. The bride procession is coming. Get ready. So the foolish actually realize that there's not enough oil left in the lamp, that they're going to be ready when the groom comes. And you notice there it says they had to trim. They started trimming their lamps and getting ready. Well, they had to cut off the wick where it had burned and relight it. Because if you've ever tried to light a burned wick, it's not easy. So they were doing that and getting ready. And so the wise were like, no, I can't give you my oil because I won't have enough. So they leave to go try to get prepared. The bridegroom comes by and they all go in to the banquet. Now the foolish who were not prepared, they go up and they knock on the door and said, hey, we're here. We're ready now. And he said, I don't know who you are. I don't know you. And so he shut the door. So what is this parable then trying to teach them? Using something they were very aware of that would happen. What is he trying to teach them?
Be ready when Christ is coming.
Be prepared. Be ready. Don't slumber and sleep. In other words, don't let your guard down. Don't be like these foolish virgins and make assumptions that the bridegroom's not coming or he's not. Don't take that time to be prepared. But was he trying to teach when he said they came and knocked on the door?
Don't think you can come after the fact.
Yeah, it's not. When the bridegroom comes, guess what? When Jesus comes, that's it, isn't it? He doesn't say, hey, when you see Christ coming, run really quick and get ready. He says, no, you be prepared. You prepare yourself for that second coming. Because once he comes, that's it. There's no preparing anymore. You have to be ready at that point. So, and I look at the wisdom of this and his teaching and how he uses these common themes to teach them in these parables, things that they would understand. They would understand exactly what he was talking about here, about being prepared. Don't make sure. And it's interesting, he said he uses wise and foolish. Those who are wise, in our day and time, those who are wise are doing what? Preparing. They're preparing themselves. They're doing the things, living their lives, and doing the things that Jesus had told us to do. Those that are foolish are doing what?
Whatever they want to.
Doing nothing or whatever they want to, or they're not getting prepared. And if unfortunately, is it harder to realize this when you're young than it is when you get older? I think I look back and when you're young, it seems like time is not going to go by fast, doesn't it? You have a lot of time, you have all the time in the world, and as you get older, what do you realize?
Time flies.
Time goes by so fast.
I just read the other day, it said the day of salvation is nearer now than when you were first obeyed.
Yeah, your salvation is closer today than it was the day you obeyed. Absolutely. So you get, if you're not careful, you think you have all the time in the world to prepare. And what he's trying to get across here is you don't have all that time. You need to be preparing now. And so, like I say, I think we do get wiser as we get older. We realize, whoa, that time has gone by like really quick. Me and my buddy were eating our Sunday morning breakfast this morning. He said, "You realize you've been retired 6 months?" I'm like, that's a lot. 6 months. That's a long time. I'm like, yeah, I kind of realize I'm liking it, you know. but it has gone by so fast. And my dad always told me, the older you get, the faster time's going to go. He also told me that my grandkids would grow up faster than my kids did. And you know what? He was exactly right. So what Jesus is trying to teach here is about time. Don't think you have plenty of time. Be preparing constantly. Be ready.
One thing that really, a lot of times things are going on the same thing all the time. We think to ourselves, it's not going to change. This is the way it is. This is the way it's going to stay. And in other words, there's no signs of any change. Everything is the same as it's always been.
So we don't have any reason to think anything. Yeah. But you ever notice that when something dramatic happens, like when 9/11 happened or certain wars start happening, what do people start thinking about? End of time. Got to get ready. You know, everybody runs back to the churches again, and all these things happen. But what he's trying to tell us here, there's not going to be a big warning here. It's not going to be you're going to get, you've seen the sign, Jesus is coming soon, or the end is coming soon. And you look at those signs and you say, well, how do they know? Well, it's going to be soon, but maybe not in our time of soon. But he is going to be coming. So he's trying to get them prepared. Also, I think another lesson is the foolish were trying to ride the coattails of the wise. The wise had prepared, so they think, well, hey, I'll just ride their coattails, and I'll get myself, let them help me get there. But are we going to ride anybody else's coattails? No, it's going to be on our own. So he's trying to say here, get yourself prepared. So comments on that paragraph before we get into the next one. All right, so then he gets into this parable of the talents, and there's a lot of lessons in this one. So we'll read it 14 through 30. It said, and I may paraphrase some of this as we go. It said, the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, each according to his ability, and immediately went on his journey. And he who received 5 talents went, traded with them, and made another 5. Likewise, he who received 2 gained 2 more. And he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. So after a long time, and I think that's as of note, a long time, the Lord of his servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered me 5 talents. I gained 5 more. The Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. He also received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered me 2 talents. I've gained 2 more beside them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Then he who received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered. And I was afraid, and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, you wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I receive back my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. From him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So here we have this parable of talents. And so you have the 5 talents, 2 talents, and you have 1. And what is the significance of the 3 different servants getting a different number of talents to use? It's based on ability. So, in other words, the one who had been given 1 talent wasn't judged by what the one who had 5 talents would have gotten. He was judged by the 1 that he had gotten, and the same with the 2 and the 5. So, I think the teaching there is we all have God-given abilities. And I think these God-given abilities, what does God expect us to do with those? To put them to use in His kingdom, whatever that might be. Now, are these talents going to be different? Sure they are. He gives each one a different talent that they use. But He expects whatever those talents are to be used in His kingdom. But He's not going to judge one who has less talent just because he has less talents, because that's what He's given. He's going to judge us all by what we've been given, the abilities that we've been given. But we all have them. That's the point. We all have whatever these abilities are. So, what then should I do with these abilities I have?
We all have the same amount. We all have a different amount of abilities, but we all have the same amount of time to use those abilities.
Right.
And then we all have a reward or punishment,
Right.
depending on how you use it.
Right. The text says we might have different talents, but we all have the same amount of time to use those talents. In other words, we don't have different amounts of time to use them, and we're all going to have either a reward or a punishment, one of the two. So I think it's important that we understand He's telling us to not underuse what God has given us, not to ignore the talents that He's given us. Whatever those talents might be, we need to be using those in His service. I think the master was gone a long time. There again, we talked before, what happens when somebody's gone a long time, or there's a long period of time there? You have a tendency, let your guard down, not worry about it till it gets closer to time. Of course, they didn't know when He was coming back exactly, so we have to use these talents. Now, how do I know what talent I have to use for God?
You really don't know until you use your talent.
How do we recognize what God
You
is
can
doing?
ask somebody else.
By trying.
Sometimes people see in you what you don't see.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's as easy as asking, what do you think God has given me that I can share with others?
Yeah. And I've told y'all a story before. This one man was preaching. He was just filling in preaching, and this lady came out at the end of one of the services, and she looked at him. She said, "If you don't go preach, you're going to hell." That's pretty blatant, But what she was telling him is, you have this ability. You have this thing you've been given. You need to go, be using it more than you're just using. And it's like you say, maybe some other people do point that out, and you see that. But I think we have to be looking for it. We have to be looking for, okay, what do I have that I can give? What do I have that I can offer? And we have a tendency to grade these abilities against each other. We see one as being more important than another. But in God's eyes, are they different? Or is one more? They're not more important. It's just whatever ability we have, and that's why we need to be looking at, okay, what ability do I have? What has God given me that I can use? And I go use that. You know, we don't look at it and say, well, he didn't give me that ability, so I'm not gonna do anything.
And with using it, you get better.
Yeah, you improve with what you use. Also, I think sometimes we can look at what we're using in everyday life. You know, what am I using to make my living at, or whatever that might be? How can I translate that into using it for God? How do I use that? It's a talent I've been given. But the point he's making here is the one with 5 and the one with 2, they took those talents, they took what God had given them, and they used them. And because they used them, they gained more, and he gave them, he said, hey, you've done well. You've used what I've given you to gain. The one who had 1, I thought it was interesting. Who did he first blame it back on that he didn't use his talent? The master who gave it to him. He said, well, I knew you're a hard man. You know, you're tough, and you gather where you don't, sow, and all these things. So he kind of put it back on him. So I got scared and went to hit it, so I wouldn't lose it. In other words, I was scared of losing it, so I didn't do anything with it. And he said, you could have at least taken it to the bank and put it in the bank, and now I'd have had that plus interest, He said, but you just didn't do anything with it. You went and hit it, didn't do anything. So that he called him then an unprofitable servant. And he cast him aside.
A lot of times people's got talents, but they don't use the talents in the service of God. A lot of times you got people who are actually people's people. I mean, they can convince people to maybe buy a product that they don't need or something of that nature, but it's not in God's service. The Apostle Paul had great talents, but he was using his talents against the gospel. And God seen these talents that he had, and he converted it into what was good.
Right. He took the talents he was using in a bad way, turned them into those talents. He said, I'm going to send you out to work for me. That they saw those talents, and that's what he did.
There's a lot of evil people who've got talents, and they could just use it. If they could just use it for the service of God, they could accomplish much.
Oh yeah.
I mean, very intelligent people that are just good.
Yeah, and I truly believe that everything God gives us, He's going to call us into account for. Whether that be talents, whether that be financial, reward that He's given us. Well, whatever that might be, I think He's going to call it into an account to see how we use it. And like you say, maybe I've used it to my benefit, but I haven't used it to God's benefit. And that's going to be all of it. And that's what He's trying to say here. There again, it's all about preparing. He's trying to get across here in His teachings about the second coming. He said, Christ is coming again. And so in the wedding feast, He says, be prepared. Don't be foolish. Don't be thinking because it's lingering long, you're not going to have to give account. And in this one, He's saying, you've been given some abilities that will help you to prepare. That will make you so you can prepare. So make sure you're using those to the best of what you can, and not be lazy. Because what did He call the one servant there who didn't use his talent? He called him lazy, right? He said wicked and lazy. So don't be lazy in the service, because He's gonna call us into account for whatever He's given us. Any comments on that? Can't you see the wisdom of God in the way He teaches in these parables? And because these are things they understood totally then, and we can understand now of what that teaching is. So we're going to stop there today. We'll start at verse 31 of 25 next week, and then we'll ease into 26 as well.